After 950 years of being mocked, ignored, and betrayed, the Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, he raised a dua. One of the hardest things as a Muslim and as a leader is to balance between our sense of justice and righteous indignation and opposition to oppression and falsehood, to balance that with mercy, to balance that with magnanimity, to balance that with the softness that we've seen demonstrated in the example of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when we look comprehensively at the Quran and at the Sunnah, we find plentiful examples of how to balance these two things, and that either one of two extremes would be blameworthy and would be outside of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala approves of. That to be so concerned and so staunch and so firm and uncompromising upon oppression that it leads us to commit harm. It leads us to seek vengeance or revenge in a petty way. That we would be so obsessed with obtaining our goals that we would not pay any attention to the means and the legitimacy of the means by which we take to get there. Or that we would shut the door to redemption and to tawbah and to people coming around. That would be one type of extreme. But the other type of extreme would be to claim this false type of mercy that is okay with just about anything, that doesn't have any standards, that doesn't hold anyone accountable, that is going to allow the forces of evil to perpetuate the harm that they exact and bring to bear on the earth and its inhabitants. Neither of those two extremes are what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to be in between those two ends of the spectrum. And we see a beautiful example of the correct type of balance in the example of Nuh alayhi salam, especially towards the end of Surah Nuh. Nuh alayhi salam, obviously, he knows what it's like to deal with oppression and with persecution. He called his people for 950 years. And they rejected him, and they not only rejected in the sense of not believing in him and not following him, but no, they actively mocked him, they actively undermined him. There comes a moment in the story of Nuh alayhi salam where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals to Nuh that that's it, that your mission is done, you've built the ark, whoever is going to believe has already believed. And whoever doesn't believe now, nobody else is going to believe. And so Nuh alayhi salam makes a dua, and the dua is extremely interesting and significant in how he balances these two themes of justice and mercy. He says, وَقَالَ نُوحُ رَبِّي لَا تَذَرْ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ مِنَ الْكَافِرِينَ دَيَّارًا. He makes a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to not allow any of the wrongdoing people to remain on earth. Now, in isolation, you might wonder, there might be a shubha or a doubt. Is Nuh alayhi salam just being petty? Is he just reacting because he's in his feelings? He's feeling personally slighted by these people. He called them for so long and they didn't respond. That must have been hurtful. That must have been painful. But the next ayah, Allah shows us that this is not out of defense for himself. This is not any personal grudge that Nuh alayhi salam feels. That this is actually a very, very wise and strategic dua to make, because Nuh alayhi salam is considering the consequences of the people of falsehood remaining. He says, إِنَّكَ إِن تَذَرْهُمْ يُضِلُّوا عِبَادَكَ وَلَا يَلِدُوا إِلَّا فَاجِرًا كَفَّارًا. That if these wrongdoing people remain on earth, what are they going to do? They're going to lead your servants. He's talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's going to lead your servants astray. And they're not going to beget anything, both in the literal sense of the children that they raise, nor in the figurative sense of the people and the societies that they constitute, except for those of the wicked and the people that reject. So Nuh alayhi salam is thinking long term, and he's thinking about guidance, and he's thinking about trying to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remove these people from earth, to not let any of them remain, because of the harm that they're going to do, not just to themselves, but also to other people. And then Nuh turns onto a different topic. Then he says, رَبِّ اغْفِرْ لِي وَلِوَالِدَيَّ وَلِمَنْ دَخَلَ بَيْتِيَ مُؤْمِنًا وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ وَلَا تَزِدِ الظَّالِمِينَ إِلَّا تَبَارًا. So here's where we see Nuh alayhi salam flips between two things. And one, he asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive him. And this is a sunnah of the prophets, that when you do a good deed or when you complete some momentous task, the first thing that you do is you ask Allah to forgive you. And this is actually something within our sharia from the Prophet ﷺ. After we complete our salah, and our salah is one of the best deeds, if not the best deed that we can do after tawheed, is to say, Astaghfirullah, Astaghfirullah, Astaghfirullah. To seek refuge and repentance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to seek His forgiveness, not because we just did any sin, not just because we did something bad. We didn't. We did something great, but it's not perfect. It can never be perfect. There's always room for improvement. Maybe we were distracted. Maybe we had mixed motives. Maybe our minds were elsewhere. And so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us for the shortcomings even in the good deeds that we do. Nuh alayhi salam is no different here. He asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive him and his parents and whoever enters his home as a believer, and in general for the believers. So Nuh is distancing, he's creating this furqan, this strict separation between the people of truth and the people of falsehood. And he asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive him and to also to forgive all of the people of truth, the people who have believed. And to not, on the other hand, to not increase the people of oppression and the people of evil and the people of falsehood in anything except for destruction. Again, not out of pettiness, not out of a grudge that he has, not about his own personal feelings, but out of extreme concern for what type of society that is going to result in. And so for us, as Muslims in our own communities, as leaders, we have to be sensitive to these two dynamics as well. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us success and to give us victory in our opposition to falsehood. Not because we want to be famous, not because we want to be well liked, not because we want any personal vendettas to be settled, but just because of our concern for the societies in which we live. We want truth to prevail, and we want falsehood to perish, and we turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make sure that that happens.